Hello, everyone. Welcome to Embracing Change, Navigating the Transition to a Hybrid Work Model. My name is Samantha Kenney. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at OfficeRnD, and I'm joined by Lars. I'm joined by Lars, who is helping us today go through some of these questions around what is hybrid work, what are some of the different transitions into some of these models, what his story is with Akelius, and then talking about answering some of your questions. Let me go to the next slide here. Actually, Lars, if you wouldn't mind, I'll have you introduce yourself, your role at Akelius, and then actually what you do for those that might not be familiar.
Yeah, thank you, Samantha. My name is Lars Eliasson. I've been working in the IT industry for 25, 30 years. Today, I'm responsible for an application team at Akelius. Akelius is a real estate company within the residential real estate market. And I work for a subsidiary, Akelius Technology, where we provide IT services for the companies within the Akelius group and also for external companies within the real estate business.
And can you just talk a little bit about what the hybrid work model is that you're using currently across your locations?
Yeah, sure. At Akelius, we have a model today where we are working in 3 days in the office, and team-wise, it's decided which days it should be. We are trying in different locations. We have a business in 8 different countries, and we are trying to follow the same procedures everywhere. And 3 days a week in the office, it's decided team-wise. We are trying to find good ways to find other teams. So we have cross-functional meetings and trying to be in the office on the same days as our, should we say, the key stakeholders for my side of the company.
3 days for a lot of cross collaboration and getting folks together, correct?
Yes, actually the coffee machine talks are seen as very important part of the way we are working, and this is what we have missed when people could decide a little bit more of when we have a more free hybrid model where it wasn't really decided how many days a week people should be at the office.
Excellent. Thank you for that intro, Lars. Much appreciated. So we're going to get into a little bit more of that, especially those water cooler coffee talks and how important those are. But before we get into some of the questions and the polls for today's audience, I just wanted to quickly remind everyone that the slides and the recording will be available within 48 hours post-webinar. So please feel free to share. We'll also have this available on demand after the webinar. You'll be able to come back actually to the same landing page that you signed up for and get this on demand if you'd like to share that with some of your colleagues. Also, please, at any point in time, you can pop your questions right into the chat pane for either myself or for Lars. We'll be answering those as we go through as well as at the end. So please feel free, put those in and we'll answer those accordingly. And then we do have a few polls as part of our presentation today, just to gauge where everyone is at. There's a lot of different ways. Lars and I were just chatting about how many different types of hybrid work models you could possibly have. I think the opportunities are endless when it comes to putting together something that works for your individual company. So we just want to see where everyone is at. And so anytime we have those up, please engage, and then we can tailor the discussion a little bit better to see who's here at that particular time. So like I said, we're going to start right with a poll. Okay, so for this first one, let me just take a second and we'll launch this. Everyone should be seeing this on their screen. Just a quick understanding of what is your organization's current work model. And I mean, these are of the highest level, either fully remote, on-site, and hybrid. It's looking like it from this particular poll, we've got a mix, and we'll talk about these results in just a second, but for the majority of folks are hybrid. We've got a fully remote, fully on-site. So some folks who are doing some research here by coming to this webinar. Interesting. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll end this poll and I will share the results. So the majority of you who have joined us today are in fact hybrid. So partially remote, partially on site. I would love to hear from folks, if you don't mind putting some insight into the chat around how many days per week, if there is a requirement per week that you need to be in the office, or if it's a percentage of time per month, something like that would be great to go off of. It would be really interesting to hear how everyone is doing this and doing it differently. We do have one person who's joined us today who is fully remote, and then we also have one that is fully on site, but the majority here look like we're in a hybrid model. So please let us know which exact model you are in. Okay, so with that, let's hop over into some other polls that we've done recently. I think it's really difficult to get at a concrete amount of data around what the hybrid work policies are, who's navigating towards different ones, whether it's 2 days a week in office, 1 day a week in office, fully remote, or some type of a mix. And so the team at OfficeRnD put out some LinkedIn polls over the last few weeks to see what we could get for data in preparation for this particular webinar. And one of these polls that we put out on an HR group on LinkedIn, one of the largest ones that's available, we got 355 responses around consideration for transition to a hybrid work model. And it's really interesting here. If you actually look at there's the 46% of respondents who are saying we're not looking at it at all. But then the other, when you start adding that up, it's about 50-50. So we've got about 50% of our businesses, of our workforce, in a no, we're not hybrid work at all, and then 50 in the some type of planning stage and moving forward into what that ultimately looks like. So I was a little bit surprised by these numbers. I think it's probably a little bit biased. I was expecting a little bit more towards the hybrid work component, but Lars, I'd be interested to hear what some of what your impressions are from this particular poll.
Yeah, as you, I'm a little bit surprised about the relative high number of companies not considering hybrid work at all. Of course, it depends on the business you are in, but in the more office-based business where I'm residing, it's very, very common, at least in Sweden and in Europe, to have a hybrid work model in different way, totally fully on site. Within all my former colleagues and current colleagues, I don't even know anyone that's working in IT business, for example, that are not using a hybrid model.
True, very true. And that's one thing that I think if we were to do a more in-depth survey, obviously firmographics of this would be very, very important. Obviously within manufacturing, that's a lot, you simply can't, right? You can't have a hybrid work model. But for any type of IT, it's a lot more common. So I think we've got a lot more data digging to do to get to something that's a little bit more concrete, and I'll be looking forward to doing that over the next few months. But let's go into some of the pieces of your story, Lars, if that's all right. So why did Akelius decide to transition to a hybrid work model? And and then I guess, was there an aha moment that led to the decision, or was it more of a gradual process? And I don't know how we can do this without saying COVID, but I would be interested to hear if it wasn't COVID.
Yeah, but I can start with the part a long time before the COVID. This company I work for, we have had the possibility to work remotely, technology-wise, for many, many years, much longer than anyone thought it was possible, actually. So we have been quite successful in keeping the work-life balance on a high level. It's been really important for this company that sometimes you need to be home for practical matters, or it could be that you need to take care about the sick kid, even if you can still work. And we have been given that possibility for more than 10 years before COVID, but we never had a model for that. It was fully in office, but with keeping the work-life balance part of it in good shape. And the family thing has been really important for this company. So after COVID, of course, everything changed, and the hybrid model started to be more concrete then, and we needed to get people back to the office because they couldn't really do their work 100% from home, depending on what your role were, of course. And then we started to get tools for sorting this COVID matters out, contact list to know who is in the office, keeping the distance, all these COVID-based things. And that sort of not forced us, but forced us to get the more proper hybrid model where we decided how this should be done, and some guidelines for people how to work in the parts of when COVID took a pause, and also when the pandemic was officially over.
Absolutely. And remind me again, so you have 5 different offices that are currently, is that correct? 5 different offices that are in a model, some type of a hybrid model. You have some that are not in a hybrid model. Can you talk a little bit about how those vary based on geographies, cultures, things like that?
I can say we have the same hybrid model everywhere, but it's more depending on the history, what kind of location we have, how many seats we have. But everyone that works that give it possible to work remotely can do that for 2 days a week. Some of our colleagues, as you said, have similar to manufacturing. They need to be on site or at the office all of the time, and they are of course obligated to be that. But everyone that has the possibility practically can also utilize the hybrid model.
Great. That's excellent. Thank you for that. And I think we'll transition over into a little bit more of the, okay, so it's great backstory, but then I think the more interesting part of the transition stories is always the what would you do differently? So what goes great is always fantastic, but are there elements of the transition to a hybrid work model and of that journey that you would go back and say, maybe we should have taken this a different direction?
Yeah, not so much actually, but I think that it needs to be aligned within with the stakeholders and the management within the company, and this could be on the second tier management level as well, to follow the model and why it's important to have a model. No matter if you decide to work fully remotely or if you work 100% in the office, it must be sort of sold in to the more or less the whole company from start. And maybe we didn't really understand that is a necessity, at least in my opinion. And this also gives that it must be really supported by upper management, because you cannot tell people to work in one way and do it differently yourself, and the opposite.
Yeah. And I have a question from the Q&A panel. Do you have any changes planned to your current models so 2 days a week is standard? Do you have any changes that you've learned would make this better, or that you're going to try in the short term?
We had, before it was more free, people could work from home or they could be working in the office. It wasn't decided, and that was not really good, because it was not really good model to know where people are, because it's different. Maybe you choose to have a face-to-face meeting if you know that someone is in the office, or a more remote meeting if you know that they are working from their home location. And it was good to have rules and guidelines in place, and we didn't have that when we started. And now we have a model for this, and we are following it. And I think that's a good advice, to really have that from start.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yes. And on to the third topic, going back to the whole, what you just said around there's a duty of care, knowing where your employees are, and obviously technology can clearly help with that. What technologies did you use as a part of this transition?
Since we have this possibility for remote work for many years, it's more that the majority of these tools that have changed. And as you've seen, as you said, maybe we don't want to mention COVID all of the time, but this is a big part of this. And COVID forced the IT business to be much more faster. And everyone has seen the change in Skype and in Zoom and all these in Teams and so on, to how much better these tools are now. And I think that that's the important part, that the tools are following what people are really need to be able to work from home, because it's not just a web camera and a microphone that you need. You also need possibility to share data, collaboration tools. It could be good whiteboards, electronical whiteboards, and tools similar to that.
Absolutely, yes. And I mean, you can even get into things like access control that you might not have had before. So both Wi-Fi access, regular access control, desk booking, meeting room booking, visitor management, all of those things are all part of a new world that, or a transition to a hybrid work world that may not have been part of anybody's thought process before, with everybody being in office. So it's always very interesting to hear that. And then also there's a question in the chat pane around what are some of the tools that you use today, that if you're able to share.
Yeah, I can share. We are mainly utilizing Microsoft Teams and the all surrounding apps around that. We are a big Microsoft users in our company, so that's why we have chosen Teams instead of other tools. But it's a collaboration tool that offers both video conferencing and the chat functionality, all sort of everything in one place. You can also share your schedule in a good way, so people can see that you are working remotely or in the office easily. So that together with, of course, OfficeRnD, the desk booking system, and the tools that which is offered there. So this is what we are, the main tools for us to following our hybrid model.
Yes, yes. And Microsoft obviously has done a great job of expanding with that need as well as our integrations with OfficeRnD and others. So it's great. And then the last question for our discussion today, and this is one that I know is always a favorite of Miro, our CEO, to ask, because the data is so important to him around making good decisions. But are there any metrics that you and the team at Akelius use to really understand how your hybrid work model is working and being positive?
To be honest, we don't measure very much regarding this, because we have it's more of, we really like to be sort of flexible in this, but we are monitoring things for informational purposes, to see the utilization of desks, hot areas in some offices, and to see if we need more spaces in some of the offices, but not so much as you can think. We are a sort of a free mind company, that we give with a flat organization. We really give employees a lot of freedom. I understand and see that there are good tools for measuring this, and it could be. But I think the utilization is the key thing here. To you can also follow if people are following the office policy.
Yes.
It's important to see that people are really the 2 or 3 days in the office, depending on what you have decided. And that is interesting for management, but maybe not so interesting for the regular users.
Right. The regular users just care that it works, and it's easy to book a desk. It's easy to move, or all of those things. All right. We do have a few questions in the pane, but before we get there, I am going to ask the audience for help in one more poll, and then we'll get into to asking your questions. And it really, it's really interesting to us around what are the biggest challenges. I know Lars shared a few of his, so I'll open this poll up, but what are the biggest challenges into transitioning to hybrid work? So what is it that's keeping you from doing this in general? And obviously we've heard the benefits of it in the news and the media, and then some of the detriments of it. And so I'd be really interested to hear at a ground level from the folks who are actively trying to make these decisions, what that ultimately is. So this poll is a lot more varied. This is great. Thank you everyone for participation. I'll hold for just a minute before I share this again. We'll have some stuff to talk about on this one, Lars. This will be good. A lot more varied. give everyone another second. Got the majority of folks in, 64%, but give it another minute. All right, here we go. I'll end this and then share the results. So it's looking like communication and collaboration is the #1 reason in terms of why folks would not be part of a hybrid work model, followed by employee engagement and management and supervision. In fact, the technology looks like it's the easiest part right now, although it's still a concern. So how would you react to these numbers, Lars?
Yeah, I'm happy to see that the management and supervision is not so highly rated here, because I think that's, in my opinion, even if I've been working quite long in this business, I think that's part of the past as we see it in our company, because we have been working remotely for different reasons for many years, as I said, and we have never had that kind of problems. That kind of the problem is personal based and not based on the hybrid work model, I think.
Absolutely, yes. I think it's brought to the forefront the need for great mid-management, great senior leadership, just great management in general and coaching and things like that, that's for sure. Communication and collaboration is actually an interesting one for me. I think that the one-to-one communication is typically pretty good. I think it's the chain or the multiple communication pieces that might get missed. So this one person didn't get the memo, for example, but it was an important thing. So that's a legitimate concern, I would say, for sure. I am surprised that more folks didn't pull technology and infrastructure to the forefront. I mean, that's I was expecting a little bit more in terms of that, and also management and supervision, but communication and collaboration is a real concern for folks.
Yeah, and what I can add to that is that I think that what my 5 cents in this is that it's good to have not rules but guidelines how this should be done. I know when we started to utilize the chat tools and video conferencing on more of a personal-based video conferencing and Teams and Skype and Zoom and so on for one-to-one calls. Some people get stressed about getting a video call from a colleague, but they were never stressed about giving a phone call 10 years ago. Same people. And this is something that has changed, and it's easy to be seen as a boomer when you think, why don't people want to talk in the phone or in the video call? But we need to adopt to different times and culture ages, or what we should call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. My advice here is to have guidelines. Well, if you know that people are in meetings, endless meetings every day, you must know that you can reach them, and how could you reach them, and how when is it rude to message someone who is in a meeting or away, or what status they ever have in the tools. And I don't say how it should be done, but I think that every company should have a discussion of a conversation of and decide the guidelines for this.
Mm-hmm. Almost a culture around communication and collaboration and what that means. Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. Well, I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. Just before we get into our Q&A, I do at OfficeRnD we truly appreciate that everyone spends a portion of their day with us and with Lars and I as we talk about hybrid work, transitioning to hybrid work, and what that means for a variety of different businesses and models and all the different ways that you can go. So thank you so much for taking the time today. So a few questions in our chat pan, and I promise I didn't see this one, Lars. What was the desk booking software that you mentioned that you used? One of our attendees said that she missed that, and she apologizes, but she would like to know.
Yeah, we are utilizing the desk booking system from OfficeRnD, and I can happily say that we had another solution in the past, which we started to use during the COVID. This was for their thing was getting people back to the office. They had setups for this contact list and also this keeping the distance things. Whereas Office R&D is more based on the needs that we have today. And I know that there are competitors doing similar things, but we are really happy what Office R&D are offering in this desk booking part.
Thank you. And I know that we chatted a little bit about this, Lars, but can key metrics that you track, if any, would you mind just repeating that part for the team?
Yeah, I think utilization of the desk to see which is the busy days in the office to understand when it's also important to understand that you need to book a desk in time if you have an important meeting you want to be in the office, and also to understand if we need to have more space or more or less actually, because one part of this is that we have when we are moving offices today, we are choosing smaller offices than before because we don't have the dedicated desks for everyone anymore, and we can save some money for the company, and the tools help us do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the key metrics.
Absolutely, yes. One of the areas that we're seeing a lot of our customers really lean into right now, above and beyond desk bookings, is meeting room analytics, how much their meeting rooms are being utilized, because in some ways those are actually more, depending on the business, obviously more of a hot commodity than the desks are. I mean, I see it all the time. People are standing outside of offices, right, waiting up until the minute to be able to get in, and because there just isn't anything that's available. So meeting room analytics is a big one for us that we see quite frequently. Another one is because this is more of a premium offering for some offices, but any catering that's needed in that particular meeting room. So, or what that looks like, how much that's being utilized, budgeting reports, things like that. Those are some of the other things that we're seeing quite a bit now. In addition to just visitors to the office, are people coming more and using the office as a hub? So there's a lot more visitors coming to the office, where obviously that would have a trickle down effect into meeting rooms and to desks, hot desks. But those are some of the big ones for us. Mostly all of it is around utilization, I think, for the majority of our customers, for sure. There was a quick question about, will the recording be shared? Yes, the recording will be shared following the webinar. Within 48 hours, that will be sent out to everyone. And then another question, what do you do that helped make the transition to hoteling smooth? We are preparing to do this, but want to know how you went about it to maybe avoid some of the issues that you encountered. Did Akelius do hoteling, Lars?
Hoteling in what? Sorry for my bad English here.
No, that's so hoteling, meaning basically it's a hot desk that you would be able to go in and book on your own at any point in time.
Yeah, this is the model that we are using, and I don't think that has been an issue at all, actually, because people are really into I need to be in the office this day. They are booking in a good time, and if it's not super important to get a really good desk, we are working around that, actually. But of course, you cannot have too low capacity to make this work good. And this is the important part of it, I think. But for us, it has been working really good, and this is the model we are utilizing. And for example, in the Stockholm office where I work today, we have 36 seats in this office, but we are 65 employees, and we don't have any problem to mitigate that.
Which is that's great. That's using your data to make those informed decisions.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of our clients, one of the things that is a pitfall for this particular item is being very clear on the policy up front so that everyone understands that policy and adheres to that policy, and then the consequences of not adhering to that policy. Another thing is, how do you track that policy? So making sure that you have some type of a system in place so you can see what the utilization rate is per individual and per team. You can see which teams are meeting in the office, those types of data points. The other thing around hoteling is that we see quite frequently is just tech setup even. So how does someone know what desk has a monitor and a speaker and a phone, if you needed all of those things, or a camera, for example. All of that should be in whatever system that you use. So when you go to book that desk, you know that it fits with a certain type of technology or your needs for that particular day. So that's another big thing that we'll see quite frequently. Just small pitfalls that you wouldn't necessarily think of as part of the overall transition. The majority of it is just, how do we get people into the office and how do we book the desk? And then those are the things that come afterwards that might be considered. Great.
Yeah, and I agree to that. I think the amenities, what you have at your desks is a really important part. We have sorted in a different way because we have set up every desk is exactly the same, but that's not the case in all of the time. And then it's really good to understand. And now it's when it's a technology change here, regarding screens, for example, when we have the double screens at all desks, but soon it's going to be one big wide screen instead. And this could be part of people's choice of desk of the day.
Absolutely, yes. All right. Well, again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, especially Lars. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your knowledge with everyone who was able to make it. We always appreciate it, and it's been a wonderful conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, the recording will be shared following this within 48 hours. This will be available on demand. Everyone will receive an email in their inbox with all of the relevant information. And thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye all.